All right, so if you want to build a business, you are inevitably going to have to deal with a whole lot of stress. As the founder, as the entrepreneur, the person who's running the show at the top of the mountain, you are the one who has to carry the weight of anxiety, of overwhelm, of stress for everybody else. They use you as the escape valve for their stress. That's your job, is to help them decompress, right? But who helps you? And if there is nobody around to help you decompress, then what ends up happening is you just become more and more hyper pressurized until you become incapacitated by the stress, the anxiety, the overwhelm, and that could lead to just complete burnout. It could lead to depression. It could lead to just you exploding in a fit of anger and rage, right? This is why so many people have meltdowns as founders and CEOs and entrepreneurs, because it is very hard. It's very lonely at the top, and it's nobody's job to help you decompress the stress that you're feeling. So what I want to share with you is just some insights as to how I personally deal with overwhelming levels of stress that you will occasionally encounter on your journey. This has been my experience across multiple assets and multiple businesses at this point. And the interesting thing is, you will develop a certain base level of ability for dealing with overwhelm and anxiety and stress, but then you will be tested in certain periods where it gets particularly pronounced. And then you start to wonder, okay, what am I even doing here? And so just going back to the basics and understanding what can you do to affect the situation to help you deal with the stress. The first thing I want to share is this simple idea that I had last week, which is that it is impossible to move forward in a frictionless environment. If you were to imagine that you are in a zero gravity, perfectly frictionless environment, you could not get pressure on anything, you couldn't pick it up, you couldn't move it, like you couldn't get traction, then you could not move forward. You would just flail, right? And you'd slip around you, but you couldn't make progress. So progress requires resistance. We need a certain level of resistance to make forward progress. And that's a good analogy for life. But the better part of this is to understand that too much resistance also can kill progress. If you're crushed beneath the weight of the pressure of what you're bearing, and you have too much friction and resistance, then you can't move forward either. So we need to find that sweet spot. And what we should be aiming for is a level of resistance that is causing us to grow and is making us stronger so that we can carry increasingly heavy loads of resistance. That's why, Elon Musk can deal with far more stress than your average individual. It's not because he just woke up one day and he had that. It's because he's been gradually ratcheting up the resistance. And so the way to think about this is the difference between what's called distress and eustress. Eustress is eustress. Eustress is good, positive stress that we encounter, and it feels good to go after a challenge. This is the stress you feel when you get into a cold plunge. This is the stress you feel when you go to the gym and you work out. This is the stress that's helping you grow, and we want that. But the type of stress that really kills people in the game of business is distress, right? And by performing and seeking out the eustress, we increase our capacity to deal with the distress. And the distress is the stuff that the universe throws at us that we have no control over. Eustress, you typically have some kind of control over. Distress, you do not. And so I wanted to frame that for you to understand that not all stress is bad. Right? Some stress is really good. Some stress makes you stronger and better. Some stress just kills you, right? And so what I want to talk about is what to do about that stress that's killing you. The very first thing, when you get yourself into like a hyper overwhelmed state, you need to go back to the basics, and you need to do everything that's in your power to control for the 3 levers of energy. That is your sleep, your nutrition, and your exercise. Understand that your sleep is the number one factor that's going to impact your cortisol levels throughout the day, your energy levels throughout the day, and how you're able to handle stress. So a good night's sleep is critical. Now, the funny part here is that when you're stressed and you can't fall asleep in the middle of the night, and you know how important sleep is, and you're tired, but you can't shut off your brain because it's just twirling around a million miles a minute, you're sitting there, and that kind of adds to the stress, that adds to the anxiety, because you're like, I know how important this is. Why isn't it working? And all I can say is that if you take care of certain basics and don't make it harder on yourself, you will increase your likelihood of getting that good sleep. So stop drinking alcohol. First and foremost, it will kill your recovery. It will make sleep more difficult. Be conscious that you are adhering to your sleep protocols. Have a bedtime. Make sure that you're turning off the lights and sleeping in darkness. You have your white noise, and you're doing everything in your ability to maximize the probability of getting a good night's sleep. Now, inevitably you will be sitting there in the dark looking up at the ceiling, and your mind will start to twirl. And your mind has this funny ability to just keep going back to the thing that you're trying to forget about so that you can fall asleep. And for me, instead of just trying to brute force my mind away from it and getting frustrated with it, instead what I do is I point it out to myself and I laugh at it every time it happens. And this will happen very frequently as you're laying there trying to sleep. Your mind will go back to that thing and you won't even notice it, and you'll go down a rabbit hole, and then suddenly you'll realize it. And I want you to take that opportunity to look at the thing and go, man, my brain is so funny. Like, its ability just to keep going back to this, like, just keeps licking the wound, right? And like, you silly little brain, change the dynamic that you have with it. Instead of treating it like a serious thing, be like, that's so silly. You know, that's going to be there in the morning, so let's just put that aside. And what I like to do then is just smile through it and tell myself, what am I grateful for in that moment? So every time I find myself twirling, I look at it, I go, that's weird. That's so funny how like my brain just wants to keep going back to it. And I'll smile at it and I'll say, it's okay. It's all right. Here's what I'm grateful for. I'm grateful that I'm in this position to have this problem. I'm grateful for, this person sleeping next to me. She's great and awesome and lovely. I'm grateful for the fact that, I still have a functioning mind and the ability to deal with this, right? And so like, find gratitude and de-seriousnize. That's not even close to a word. Be playful with it. Try to be playful. That will help you immensely. Now, make sure that you're also taking care of yourself on your exercise front. Get out, get movement, get sunlight, get steps in, go lift weight. What do they say? Exhaust the body to tame the mind. That's a real thing. Take that very seriously. And I understand when you're stressed, you're trying to do so much. You're like, I'm trying to move so many mountains, I don't have time. And your self-care goes out the window. But that is just a ticking time bomb. You can only do that for so long. You can only pour out from the same cup for so long before it's empty. So you need to be making time to replenish and refill it. And so exercise, sleep, those are two ways to do it. Nutrition is the other side. Just make sure that you're trying to take care of yourself. You're trying to put good food into your body. You're not just eating junk all the time. And I know that's easier said than done, but a little bit goes a really long way here. Now, that's the basics. Slightly more advanced, I would recommend, if you're feeling immense levels of stress, is some kind of cortisol supplement. I use Cortese. This is just, it helps reduce the cortisol levels in your body, and I found that to be very, very, very effective. Next is, you need to not carry it all yourself. You need to find trusted confidants that you can share what you're experiencing. Do not be too proud to share and be vulnerable. Vulnerability requires strength. And just because you feel like you're at the top of the chain and like have nobody to turn to, I trust that you do have friends and family, people in your life that care and that would listen and that would help you. They don't need to help you problem solve it, but they can help you carry the weight by just taking a little bit off your shoulders at that moment. And that can make all the difference in the world, knowing that you're not in it alone. So don't try to go it alone. Last is carve out downtime. Make sure that you're actually trying to make time in your day to say, okay, I'm going to go do this other thing now. I'm going to live a life beyond this moment and not just let this be everything, not be all consumed by this, and carve out time to go do other things. Life happens when we're busy making plans. And when you're in the middle of the fire, I understand that it doesn't feel like there's anything else out there, but just knowing that this too will pass and it's not everything, then I find it that much easier to go back to that activity with more clarity, more clear intuition about what needs to be done, and more perspective. And at the end of the day, that's what I really want you to get, is clarity. A lot of the overwhelm that we experience as entrepreneurs is lack of clarity about what needs to be done and whether or not it's going to work. And you don't know if it's going to work. And so you're going to have to live with that anxiety into perpetuity. But you can get clear about what needs to be done and what you can focus on in the next hour or 2 hours or 3 hours to move the balls forward. And I would try to chunk down as much as possible to, what can I affect right now? What in the next hour could I impact? And then just focus on that with intensity and clarity. And slowly but surely, you will start to improve the situation. But just remember, if it is causing you an immense amount of stress, chances are it's not something that can be fixed instantly, right? It's probably a problem that's been brewing, and it's a big monster at this point. So don't expect that the monster battle is going to be quick and easy. If you go into it and you've calibrated your expectations appropriately, that this is going to take a while and that you're in it to fight until the very end, then you approach the day-to-day very differently. Rather than as a sprint, you keep showing up and you say, I'm going to try hard today, but I need to be able to maintain this level for the next 3 months or however long it takes to get through to the other side. So I hope these help you. I hope if you're experiencing an immense amount of stress in your business right now, just understand that pressure is a privilege and that you're in a position right now to experience that pressure. And that's a beautiful thing in and of itself. So remember, whether you see obstacle or opportunity, it's simply a matter of your perspective. Change your perspective, change your world, go crush.